The entire pack was buzzing before the sun even broke the trees. Everywhere I turned, I saw stares. Some curious, some smug. Most were just waiting for the show. Because today was my day. My 19th birthday. The day the moon goddess marked fated mates. And the day the whole pack seemed to believe I'd walk away alone. I pulled my hoodie tighter around my body, my fingers tangling nervously in the worn-out drawstrings. It used to be my brother's, back before he left the pack. I kept it because it felt like armor, old, oversized, a little torn at the hem. Kind of like me.
You ready?
Talia whispered beside me, brushing invisible lint off my sleeve. She was the only one who didn't treat me like a stray dog. Ready as I'll ever be, I muttered, keeping my eyes low. The ceremony was set up behind the pack house. Rows of lanterns lit the clearing in a soft golden glow. Wolves gathered in tight clusters, dressed up and smug, like this was prom night. The higher ranks stood near the front, like they were the stars of the show. I stayed toward the back, where the shadows were, where wolves like me belonged.
Think he's your mate?
Talia asked, her voice barely above a breath. I didn't answer. Because if I said yes, I'd sound naive. And if I said no, I'd be lying. Jackson Thorne, the future alpha. The guy I grew up watching from the sidelines. Untouchable, proud, and always just out of reach. I never talked to him unless forced to. But every time he walked by, something in my heart felt better, like it knew. The elders called everyone to gather in a circle. A hush fell over the crowd. This was it, the moonrise mating ceremony. One by one, wolves stepped forward, drawn by the pull of the bond, each one sniffing the air, locking eyes, and sometimes, just sometimes, meeting the one fate picked for them. It was quick for most. A flicker of recognition, a gasp, a pair drawn to each other like magnets. It happened all around me while I stood still, cold and half praying, half dreading that tug. Then, I felt it. That spark, that invisible thread wrapping around my spine, tugging me forward. My breath hitched. Someone was walking toward me. Boots. Heavy, measured steps. I looked up. Jackson. He stopped in front of me, his jaw tight, his green eyes unreadable. Every conversation in the clearing faded like someone turned the volume down on the world. He said nothing. The bond pulsed between us, silent, invisible, but real. My wolf pushed against my skin, desperate to be close to him. I swallowed, hard. He stepped even closer. I thought, just for a second, he might reach for me. Instead, he leaned in, just enough for me to feel the warmth of his breath on my cheek.
I reject you, Ember Ray,
he said coldly, like he was reading a grocery list.
You were never meant to be my Luna.
I didn't move. I couldn't. It was like being slapped with ice. A soft gasp rippled through the crowd behind me, followed by silence so sharp it stung my ears. My voice caught in my throat. My legs refused to move, but I wouldn't let them see me fall apart, not here, not in front of them. Why, I whispered. Why would you? His eyes flicked to mine, like I was an itch he was tired of scratching.
Because the pack needs strength, and you were born weak.
The words were louder this time, loud enough for everyone to hear. I didn't even realize I was shaking until I clenched my fist to stop it. My wolf let out a low whimper inside me, curled up in the corner of my soul like she'd just been kicked. Behind Jackson, his beta, Rowan, smirked, like it was all some kind of joke. You didn't have to do it like this, I said, keeping my voice steady even though I was crumbling on the inside.
I did,
Jackson replied, calm as ever.
This way it's done, clean.
I wanted to scream, to shift, to rip something apart, but all I did was nod once, sharply, and turn around. I didn't cry, not yet, not when eyes were still watching, some with pity, some with amusement, none with empathy. And then it happened. A snort came from the right. A low-ranking female wolf, probably one of the Thorn Pack enforcers, barked out a laugh.
Guess the moon goddess ran out of options.
Another chuckled, then a third, and before I could blink, more than half the pack was laughing. At me.
You seriously thought the alpha would end up with her?
Someone said. I didn't even bother to look at them, but I was burning inside.
What's next? Maybe the Luna will be a janitor too.
Another voice mocked. I stood there, frozen, my ears burned. My hands trembled at my sides, but I didn't lift them. Couldn't. I felt like someone had poured concrete down my spine. Even wolves I'd grown up with, kids I used to share snacks with after training, were laughing now, pointing, whispers like knives sliced into me. That's got to be a new record for fastest rejection.
Can't believe she even showed up.
She really thought she had a shot. That's just sad.
Each word slammed into me harder than the last. And Jackson, he just stood there, still. Like this wasn't happening all around him. Like he wasn't the one who started it. He didn't say a damn thing to stop them. I walked away from the circle, past the elders, past the families that would never claim me now, past the bonfire that suddenly felt like it was burning someone else's dream. Each step felt heavier than before.
They will regret this,
Talia said. I saw her, but couldn't speak. Talia caught up with me, but I shook my head. Don't, please. She stopped. Let me go. I made it all the way to the edge of the woods before I let myself breathe again. The moon hung above the trees like a silent witness. I tilted my head up and whispered, "You were supposed to give me him." And the moon, just like Jackson, gave me nothing. I didn't cry. I wanted to. My throat burned. My chest felt like something sharp was lodged in it. But I didn't cry. Not after what they did. Not after the way they laughed. I wouldn't give them that. Not one damn tear. I walked out of that ceremony with my head up and my jaw clenched. But the second I hit the trees, I ran. Not as Ember, the rejected girl, as my wolf. My shift tore through me with no warning, bones cracking, skin stretching. I welcomed the pain. I needed it. Needed to get out of that body, even for a little while. And when the transformation was done, I bolted. Leaves whipped past me. Branches clawed at my fur. I didn't care. I ran like my life depended on it, even though part of me wished it didn't. The deeper I went, the quieter everything became. No more whispers, no more laughter. Just the sound of paws thudding against the earth and my own mind screaming in every direction. How could he do that? How could Jackson look me in the face and say I wasn't good enough? I gave this pack everything. I took every insult, every side-eye, every low rank thrown my way. I kept believing the moon goddess had something better planned. That maybe, just maybe, fate had my back. But fate clearly had a twisted sense of humor. Somewhere between one breath and the next, I crossed it. The boundary, I felt the snap. A subtle crackle of energy like stepping through an invisible fence. Pack territory was behind me now. I didn't stop. I didn't care. Let them send a patrol after me. Let them chase me down. What were they going to do? Reject me harder? I slowed only when the trees started to change. Thicker, darker, wild in a way that didn't feel familiar. I shifted back into human form behind a rock, hands on my knees, trying to catch my breath. The night was too quiet, too still. A sound pricked my ears, twigs crunching. Then a low growl. I froze. 3, no, 4 figures stepped out from the shadows. Not pack wolves. I could tell by their smell, by their unkempt fur, by the way they looked at me like I was already theirs. Rogues.
"Oh, look what we have here,"
The biggest one sneered. He was tall, ragged, with a scar down the side of his jaw.
"A little lost pup, all alone."
I don't want trouble, I said, lifting my chin. Back off. They laughed. Not polite laughs. This was the kind of laugh you hear in your worst nightmares. Another rogue, skinnier than the rest, tilted his head.
"But you're not even in your pack's land anymore. That makes you fair game, doesn't it?"
I shifted without warning, My wolf burst forward in one motion, her silver coat gleaming under the moonlight. I lunged first. Clawed one across the side before he saw it coming. He yelped, stumbling backward. But there were too many. One caught me mid-air and slammed me into the ground. Another bit into my side. I twisted free, raking claws across his snout. I got up, tried to spin and bite, but another slammed into my ribs from the side, knocking the wind out of me. I rolled, leapt, snapped jaws at whoever got close. But for everyone I struck, 2 more came at me harder. They didn't fight clean. They didn't fight fair. They were faster than I expected. And together they were brutal. My left shoulder burned. My back was bleeding. I couldn't tell how many hits I'd taken. It felt like the forest itself was spinning around me.
Still got some fight in her.
One growled, circling.
But not for long.
I turned and ran. I didn't have a plan. I didn't even have strength. I just ran. I leapt over logs, shoved through brush, dodged trees, but the rogues chased me like shadows that wouldn't quit. I thought I lost them just for a moment. Then something slammed into my back, and I hit the ground face first. I tried to shift again, but my wolf was slow, too drained, too hurt. I couldn't even get to my feet before teeth sank into my leg. I screamed. This was it. This was how it ended. Not as a Luna, not as a mate, not even as a warrior, just another forgotten body left in the woods. They dragged me, tossed me. I could barely feel my limbs anymore. My skin was slick with blood, my vision blurred. Another bite, another slam. My body stopped reacting. Somewhere in the mess, I heard them laughing again. Always laughing. And then, black. Everything faded. Thoughts, pain, even sound. No more running, no more anything, just silence, until there was blood in my mouth. I tasted it before I could even open my eyes. Coppery, warm, thick like syrup. Then there was something else. A voice, low, smooth, not like the snarling grunts of the rogues. This one was calm, controlled, like someone who didn't need to raise his voice to be dangerous. Something warm, a voice low and smooth, like velvet laced with steel.
You're mine now. Step away from her.
That's what he said. Just 3 words. And suddenly, everything changed. Through the fog in my head, I heard snarling, bones cracking, flesh tearing, but not mine this time. Someone else's. Over and over. Quick, precise. I blinked through the haze. There he was. Pale skin that glowed under the moonlight like porcelain dipped in silver. Eyes, red. Not just red, glowing, like they were lit from the inside. He moved fast, too fast to follow, like the shadows bent to his will, like time stuttered every time he struck. And the rogues? Gone. One tried to run. Didn't get far. Another whimpered. I think he tried to beg. It didn't help him. It was over in seconds. Just silence again. Then the man turned to me. He crouched slowly, his long coat dusting the grass. Blood speckled across the front like some twisted kind of armor.
You're still breathing. Good.
I stared up at him, everything aching. Who are you? His lips curved into a slow, unreadable smile.
Not your enemy.
I passed out again. I came to wrapped in silk, literal silk. The fabric beneath me was cool, and for a second, I thought maybe I was dead. But then I sat up, and the pain in my side snapped reality right back into place. I was in a bed, a huge one. 4 tall black posts, velvet curtains around the frame. The room looked like it belonged in some old Gothic movie. Dark stone walls, high ceilings, silver candelabras flickering with real flames. There were no windows, only one wall that stretched up in archways, open just enough for moonlight to stream through. I looked down. Someone had cleaned me. My wounds were wrapped. My hair wasn't matted anymore. I was wearing a soft black robe I didn't recognize. What the hell? I whispered. A sound behind me made me turn fast. He was there, leaning against the doorway like he'd been waiting. That same long coat, black button-down, dark slacks, hands in his pockets. He looked like something out of a forbidden book, too perfect, too still, like he didn't need to breathe unless he wanted to. "How long have you been standing there?" I asked, throat scratchy.
Long enough.
He replied, voice as smooth as before.
You're awake.
"Yeah, and apparently kidnapped." He chuckled, pushing off the frame.
That word feels a little dramatic. I saved you.
"Dragged me out of the woods and locked me in a tower," I shot back. "If the shoe fits?"
You're not in a tower.
"Feels like it."
I didn't lock the door.
He stepped closer.
You're not a prisoner, Ember.
That made me pause. "How do you know my name?" He didn't answer. Instead, he circled the bed slowly, his gaze never leaving mine.
You crossed into vampire territory. There are laws here, magic laws, and once a werewolf crosses, unclaimed, she becomes mine.
I stared. "Excuse me."
You stepped over the boundary. You were unaffiliated and nearly dead,
He stopped at the edge of the bed.
which means, by our law, you belong to me now.
My jaw dropped. "Belong? I don't belong to anyone." He tilted his head.
Then why do you smell like rejection?
That shut me up.
You were mated and discarded in front of witnesses, I assume?
He asked. I looked away. His voice softened, but it didn't lose that edge.
He was a fool, whoever he is.
Jackson. He didn't flinch at the name, just tucked it away like it meant nothing.
And now he'll never have you back.
My eyes narrowed. You speak like you know me.
I do.
His lips curled just a bit.
I've known you for a very, very long time.
You're not making sense,
No,
he said.
not yet.
I swung my legs over the bed, ignoring the flare of pain. I need to leave. Take me back to the edge of the border. He was in front of me before I finished standing. Too fast, too close, like a flash. His hand shot out, not to hurt, but to steady. Fingers brushed my waist, light but firm.
You're not ready.
I don't care.
I do.
I shoved his hand off, but he didn't back away. He was watching me like I was some puzzle he was halfway done solving. I don't know what game you're playing, I said, breathing harder, but I don't owe you anything. He leaned in slightly.
You owe me your life.
I clenched my jaw. His eyes flickered, not the glow this time, just something deeper. Like whatever was behind them had lived centuries longer than anything I could imagine.
I am Prince Cassian Valen, heir of the House of Valen, ruler of these lands, and I didn't just save you, Ember.
His voice dropped low.
I claimed you.
You don't get to do that, I snapped.
Oh, but I do. That's the law. And you're more than you think you are.
He studied my face.
You have no idea what you are, little wolf.
I stared at him, because I didn't know if I should scream, run, or lean in. What am I? I whispered. He didn't answer, just gave me that look again, like he already knew the ending to the story, and he was just waiting for me to catch up. You're insane if you think I'm staying here. I was done playing polite, my body still ached, but rage had this way of lighting a fire where pain used to sit. Cassian stood there like he had all the time in the world, arms crossed, those red eyes cool and unreadable, too calm, too still. I hated it. You can't keep me, I said, stepping back.
I already have.
I shifted, right there in the middle of his perfectly polished, candlelit hallway. I let the change rip through me. My bones cracked, skin burned, fur pushed through. Cassian didn't flinch. I lunged. He moved like a whisper, one step, and I flew past him. My claws grazed his coat. Barely. He didn't even try to hit back. He just turned, pivoted, and sidestepped me again. Every time I came at him.
You're fast.
He said casually, like we were talking about weather. I snapped my jaws at him, growled low.
And stubborn.
he added. I feinted left, then jumped right. He caught my neck midair, not hard, not enough to hurt me, but enough to stop me cold. His fingers were strong, cold as marble, but steady.
You're not a prisoner.
He said softly.
You're claimed.
I shifted back, breathing hard, cheeks flushed from effort and anger. I don't care what you call it. I'm leaving,
You can try,
he said.
but the council won't let you.
I stared at him. Council?
There are rules, and you crossed into vampire land unclaimed, nearly dead. I saved your life. That makes you mine, unless someone's ready to start a war to get you back.
That's barbaric, he shrugged.
That's politics.
I don't belong to you, I snapped. Cassian stepped forward, not touching me this time, just standing close. His voice dipped low.
You belong to wolves who left you to die in the woods like roadkill. That's what you're fighting to get back to?
I opened my mouth, then closed it. My chest rose and fell fast, not because I was scared, but because somewhere deep in my gut, I knew he was right. Still, I couldn't just give in. You're trying to manipulate me, I said.
I'm trying to wake you up.
To what? He turned without another word and walked down the corridor. I didn't follow, not right away, but curiosity. Yeah, that's a hard thing to ignore. I found him in a room that looked older than time itself. Stone walls, shelves stacked with leather-bound books, maps rolled into glass cylinders, and a massive table in the center. On it, a scroll lay open, gold trim, script written in ink so dark it looked like it bled from the page. He didn't look up as I stepped inside.
You should see this.
I don't care about your bedtime stories. Cassian finally looked up.
This is prophecy, Ember, and you're in it.
I scoffed. You don't even know me.
I know your bloodline. I know the mark on your shoulder you've probably hidden your whole life. And I know.
He picked up a dagger from the table, turned it in his hand, then offered it to me, handle first.
I know your blood glows silver.
I blinked at him. What?
Prove me wrong.
I hesitated, eyes bouncing from him to the dagger.
Go ahead.
He said.
A scratch, that's all.
I snatched the blade, pressed it lightly against my forearm, and dragged it across. The sting came first. Then the drop of blood bubbled up and lit the room, silver, like molten moonlight. I stared. What the hell? Cassian stepped closer.
You're not just a wolf. You're special. One of a kind.
I took a step back. That's not possible. I am...
You don't remember.
He pointed to the scroll.
The prophecy speaks of a wolf born of ancient blood. One who will end the war. One whose blood burns with power.
My hand shook. I covered the scratch with my palm. The glow faded. This doesn't mean anything, I whispered.
It means everything.
Why me? He looked at me then, really looked at me. Not like a weapon, not like property. Like a person who had more weight on her shoulders than she ever signed up for.
I don't know why don't you remember anything,
He said.
but I do know it always had to be you.
Silence stretched between us. His voice dropped.
The rogues that attacked you, they were trackers. Somebody knew you were close to turning 19. They were sent for your blood.
My mouth went dry. You're saying someone wants me... gone? He looked tired, not weak, just like a man who's lived through too many battles and carried too many secrets.
I'm saying,
He said,
someone is terrified of what you might become. You should get cleaned up.
Cassian said, as I stood there staring at the silver smear on my skin.
Dinner's in an hour.
I didn't answer him. I was still trying to wrap my head around what just happened. The glowing blood, the prophecy, the talk of war. But instead of pushing, he just turned and walked out like he already knew I'd follow. And I did. Not because I trusted him, but because I needed time. I needed to think. I needed to breathe. The room he gave me was way too much. Dark velvet curtains brushed the stone floor. There were books stacked high, and the scent of lavender lingered in the air like someone had just stepped out. A dress lay on the bed. Midnight blue, satin, long sleeves, open back. It shimmered when I touched it, soft and smooth like water slipping through fingers. Was it a bribe? Probably. Did I still put it on? Yeah, not because I wanted to impress him, but because the wolves who laughed at me yesterday wouldn't recognize the girl in that mirror today. And I wanted that. Just for a minute, I wanted to feel like someone they couldn't laugh at. The bath was huge, more like a small pool, honestly, and for a second, I let myself sink in. The water was warm, laced with something floral. It felt too good, like it was washing off the pain, the humiliation, the blood, and maybe a little of who I used to be. But the second I was dry and dressed, my thoughts snapped back into place. Escape. I opened the heavy door of my room, and sure enough, 2 guards posted outside. Both were vampires. I could tell from the paleness of their skin and the way they stood like statues. Neither looked my way. I cleared my throat. "Excuse me," I said, keeping my voice light. "I'm supposed to head to the dining hall?" The taller one glanced at me, just a flick of his eyes, then pointed down the hall.
Third left, end of corridor.
"Thanks," I said, flashing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. I walked slowly, eyes scanning, counting doors, watching how many guards were posted where. Every corner I turned, I studied the layout like a blueprint I'd burn into my brain later. The dining hall was bigger than I expected. Long table, maybe 24 chairs. Silver candlesticks lined the center. The windows stretched all the way to the ceiling, letting in the pale moonlight. Everything in there felt important. Like this wasn't just about eating, it was about being seen. Cassian was already seated at the head of the table. And he wasn't eating, he was waiting. So were other vampires, men and women, dressed in formal black. All eyes turned to me like I was the final piece of some twisted little puzzle. Nobody touched their plates. Nobody even sipped their wine. The second I stepped in, the room shifted. Not in a scary way, just different. All that silence wrapped around me like a blanket I didn't ask for.
Fashionably late.
Cassian said, with a small grin. "Didn't know I was the guest of honor," I replied, lifting my chin. He stood, walked over, and pulled out the chair beside him. "Seriously? Out of all the seats in the world, that one?" Still, I walked over and sat down, careful to keep my shoulders square, eyes forward, no weakness.
Everyone,
He said calmly.
this is Ember. She'll be staying with us for a while.
That's it. No mention of the glowing blood. No prophecy. Neither he said that, hey, she might be the key to saving or destroying everything. I appreciated that. A vampire woman across the table smiled politely. Another one gave a short nod of respect. The guy to my left looked like he hadn't blinked in a decade. They all looked curious, but no one questioned it. As soon as I picked up my fork, the others started eating too. Weird, and maybe a little flattering. No one's ever waited for me before. Not at pack dinners, not even at my own birthday party last year.
So,
Cassian said casually, slicing into a steak that looked way too rare.
what do you think of the fortress?
It's big, I replied, keeping my tone cool. And full of locks,
Security.
he said. Or a cage. His lips quirked.
Do you see bars on your door?
I don't need bars to know when I'm being held somewhere.
You're not a prisoner, Ember.
Right, you already told me. I'm claimed. Not a prisoner, but inside a prison. I mean a huge, beautiful dream-like prison. He didn't flinch, just kept eating, like we were discussing the weather. I glanced around. What if I said I wanted to leave tonight?
Then I'd say you're welcome to try.
And the guards at every gate?
They're there to protect this place, not trap you in it.
And what happens if I do escape? His eyes flicked to mine, calm, unreadable.
Then the wolves who sent those rogues will finish what they started. You think they'll let a girl with glowing blood live free?
That shut me up for a second. Dinner went on with a quiet hum of conversation around me, but I barely tasted the food. My brain was spinning. I needed space. So after the meal, I stood and gave the room a polite little excuse. I could use a walk. This place is something else. Cassian didn't try to stop me, just gave me that same stubborn look.
Stay inside the fortress.
He said. I'm not looking for trouble, I lied. I wandered everywhere, through the stone corridors, past the winding staircases, through the archways that led to open courtyards and balconies so high they made my stomach drop. And all the while, I watched, I counted, I planned. Guards at every entrance, cameras I almost didn't notice, runes etched into the stone, some ancient language I didn't recognize but had a weird pulse to them. Like they weren't just for decoration. This place wasn't just guarded. It was locked down. Still, every lock has a weakness. Every cage has a key. I just had to find mine. And fast. I don't know how long I wandered around that fortress. Long enough to learn that every path led to another locked gate. Another pair of guards who didn't speak much, didn't smile, didn't even look twice at me. Except to make sure I didn't go where I wasn't supposed to. The walls were too high. Every hallway curved into another guarded wing. And yet, as much as I hated feeling trapped, there was something about this place that tugged at a part of me I didn't understand. Back home, if I could even call it that, I was nothing but background noise. Jackson's reject. A burden in my own pack. But here I was something. Important. Cassian made sure of that. And even the way the guards stepped back when I passed. It was like they knew I wasn't just some stray anymore. I was someone. And I liked that. I hated that I liked it. Because deep down, a voice kept asking, what if all this was just one big, pretty cage? I dragged myself back to my room and dropped onto the massive bed. The blankets softer than anything I'd ever felt. But sleep didn't come. Not even close. My mind kept replaying everything Cassian said. The glowing blood, the ancient rules, that whole thing about being vampire claimed. Vampire bride? Me? That sounded like something out of a fantasy book. Not real life. And yet, my blood had glowed silver. That wasn't a trick. That wasn't a dream. Was it? I sat up, threw the blanket off, and rubbed my hands over my face. My body was tired, but my thoughts were on a marathon. The room was quiet except for the wind brushing faintly against the windows. Moonlight spilled across the stone floor, pale and soft. I stood barefoot and walked to the window, pressing my palm against the cold glass. Something inside me, it wasn't fear and it wasn't logic, was tugging at me, calling me to move, to go, somewhere. I didn't know where or why, but it wasn't going away. So I gave in. I slipped out into the hallway, silent as a whisper. The fortress felt different at night, quieter, sure, but also more alive. Like the shadows were watching, like they knew secrets I wasn't supposed to learn. I wandered aimlessly at first. Then I saw it. A corridor I hadn't seen before. Maybe I missed it earlier, or maybe it was hidden. Either way, it stretched long and narrow, lit by these old hanging lanterns with flickering flames that didn't burn quite right. They gave off this strange bluish glow, the kind of glow that makes you feel like you've stepped into another world. At the end of that hallway stood a tall black door, towering, ancient. Every inch of it carved with symbols I couldn't read, but something about them felt familiar. That door hadn't been there before. I was sure of it. Still, my feet moved toward it like they had a mind of their own. When I reached it, I didn't think. I just reached out and touched the handle. It was cold, colder than anything in this entire place, like winter had been trapped inside it for centuries. And then I heard it, a voice, not loud, not outside, inside me. You're not ready yet. I yanked my hand back like I'd been burned, but the door creaked anyway, slow, groaning like it hadn't been opened in ages. And it opened. Just enough to show the darkness inside. I stood there staring into that dark room. Every instinct I had screamed, turn around, don't go in, this isn't for you. But that pull, whatever it was, only got stronger. My hand reached for the door again, and then black. The second I stepped through that door, I knew this wasn't just some forgotten hallway. The space was wide and circular, like a secret chamber built to hide something ancient. The ceiling arched high above, covered in carvings that shimmered faintly under the soft blue light of enchanted lanterns. Shelves lined the stone walls, filled with rolled-up scrolls tied in faded ribbons, cracked books with strange runes, and locked glass cases protecting objects I couldn't name. Some glowed. Some looked like they hadn't been touched in centuries. I walked slowly, careful not to make a sound. Every step felt like I was trespassing in someone else's memory. There were bones etched with markings, a crown made of something that definitely wasn't metal, and a sword with dried red stains I didn't want to think about. My fingers brushed over one of the scrolls, thin as spider silk, trembling under the weight of time, and then I saw it. A painting, not like the others. This one was massive, framed in tarnished gold, hanging alone on the far wall like it owned the whole room. It showed a white wolf standing tall, eyes glowing silver, fur lit like it had its own light. Beside it, towering, regal, terrifying, and beautiful, stood a vampire with jet black hair, a long, dark cloak, and a face I knew. Cassian, same sharp jaw, same cruel kind of grace, same eyes, cold and unreadable. But this painting looked ancient, older than anything else in this room. My mouth went dry. I took a step back. Then I turned, and he was there, standing in the doorway, leaning against the stone, arms crossed, not saying a word. His eyes met mine, but they didn't flicker, didn't change, just stared like he'd known all along this would happen.
You weren't supposed to find this yet?
He said, voice low. I swallowed. Well, that door didn't exactly say, "Do not enter." His lips twitched. Not a smile, something else. I pointed at the painting. What is that? Why is your face up there? And why do I feel like I've seen that white wolf before? In my dreams? He pushed off the wall and stepped closer. Slow, measured.
Because your blood remembers what your mind has forgotten.
I stared at him, heat creeping up my neck. What does that even mean?
You've been lied to your whole life,
He said.
Your pack raised you like a stray, not a legacy. That painting, that's a memory, not a story. I was there.
I took another step back. So what are you? Immortal? Or just really into fake history? He smiled faintly.
I'm the truth no one dared to tell you.
I crossed my arms tight. I'm not buying it. This is just another trick, isn't it? Dress me up, feed me fancy meals, make me feel special, all while spinning some prophecy just to keep me under your thumb. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes did, like a shadow slipping behind glass.
There are things in this place
He said, voice quieter now.
that will wake up if you ask the wrong questions.
I didn't flinch. Maybe I want them to wake up. Maybe I'm tired of everyone hiding stuff from me. He stepped around me, walking to the painting. He looked up at it like he missed it, like it was an old wound that never really healed.
That wolf
He said,
was the first of her kind, a hybrid born from two bloodlines that were never meant to mix. She started the war that tore the realms apart, and she's the reason the prophecy was ever written.
I stared at the painting again. That wolf. She looked so much like me. She was you? I asked, unsure if I even wanted to hear the answer. He looked at me over his shoulder.
Obviously not, but you carry what she did. You are the prophecy. That female wolf is you. You're the one the bloodline led to, and only someone with that blood could open that door.
My legs felt like stone. I turned to him, throat tight. So that's it. I'm just some ancient message from the past. A pawn on some vampire chessboard? He walked toward me again. This time he didn't stop until he was a breath away.
No,
He said quietly.
you're the only piece that matters.
His voice didn't waver. Didn't plead. Just spoke like he was stating the weather, like he believed it. I didn't know what to say. I hated that I almost believed him. I searched his face, his features too perfect, too composed. But there was something behind his eyes, something that didn't quite match the cold king he pretended to be. "You confuse the hell out of me," I muttered.
You're not the only one.
I turned away first, needing space to think, to breathe. My fingers grazed a nearby scroll, and again that strange pull buzzed through me. Cassian walked to the door, pausing there.
You can't stay half asleep forever, Ember.
He said, voice echoing softly in the chamber.
Eventually, you'll have to choose. Live like a caged wolf howling for freedom, or become something far more than that. Something that matters.
And then he was gone, just like that, leaving me standing in a room full of secrets, staring at a painting of a wolf who looked too much like me, and wondering what the hell I really was. I looked down at my palms. They were trembling. I don't know what's real anymore. He reached out, gently placing his hand over mine, warm, steady.
Then let me help you figure it out.
I looked up. Why?
Because whether you believe it or not,
He said softly.
this place doesn't move without you, and neither do I.
The silence sat between us for a beat too long. I leaned back against the headboard, staring at the dark ceiling, voice low. I saw the world ending tonight. And the worst part? I don't know if I was watching it happen, or causing it. Cassian didn't answer. He just stayed. Quiet. Solid. And for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel like I was alone.
Ember,
Cassian said, his confident, the kind that pulls you in without even trying.
the one you saw in the painting, that was you. I already told you.
I sat there, still half caught between sleep and the remnants of the nightmare. My throat felt dry, my brain like it had run a marathon. I looked at him, really looked, and whispered, I don't know what to say to that. He took a breath, stepped closer, arms relaxed at his sides.
Should I explain it? Everything. Right now.
I blinked. My eyelids felt heavy like they'd been carrying too much for too long. In the morning, I said quietly, We'll talk, okay? I need a minute. I need sleep. His gaze didn't leave mine.
All right, but Ember, I want you to know everything. The sooner, the better.
And then he left. No argument. No pressure. Just stepped out like he respected the space I asked for. The room felt quieter after that. I sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing my arms, trying to shake off the dream. My thoughts were a maze. Every time I thought I found the way out, I just hit another dead end. Cassian, the painting, Jackson, the fire. Was it all just a dream, or something deeper? I laid back down, curling the blanket around me. My eyes stared at the ceiling for what felt like hours before sleep finally came. I woke up to sunlight spilling across the room. It looked like late morning, but I didn't feel rested, just awake. My body still remembered that dream, even if my brain wanted to push it away. I stretched, groaned, and dragged myself to the little washroom. I splashed cold water on my face, staring at my reflection like it owed me answers. My hair was wild, lips a little pale, eyes still carrying the weight of last night. But something inside me had shifted. Like I was done just sitting and wondering. I needed to know the truth, and not just from Cassian's mouth. I needed to see it for myself. Was I really free here? Or was this just a prettier cage? I pulled on a fresh dress, nothing fancy, just something soft and light, and slipped into my boots. I tied my hair back into a quick ponytail, lips pressed tight in focus. If I was a prisoner, someone was about to get caught lying. I stepped out of the room and walked straight down the hall, past the towering archways and flickering torches. The morning light filtered through the tall windows, golden and peaceful, like it didn't know anything about secrets or prophecies or vampire princes. When I reached the outer gates, 2 guards were standing on either side, tall, silent, dressed in black and silver. I walked right up to them, chin lifted. Open the gates. They didn't ask questions. They didn't glance at each other. They just stepped forward and pulled the giant doors open without hesitation. My breath caught. Not out of fear, but confusion. That was it? That easy? I stared at the open path beyond the gate. Trees, hills, sky. No invisible barrier, no magical force field. No one tackling me to the ground. I stepped forward slowly, my boots crunching against the gravel. I glanced back over my shoulder. The guards weren't following me. Nothing was stopping me. I could leave, right now, just walk and never come back. But I didn't, because now I had even more questions. Why make me feel like I was trapped if I wasn't? Why all the cryptic comments, the watching eyes? It didn't add up. I turned back around and started walking. Not away from the fortress, just around. I told myself I'd come back soon. Cassian promised me answers, and I wasn't about to miss out on those. But I needed space, a breather, a little distance to think without him clouding everything. The path curved gently, lined with wildflowers and tall grass. I walked slower now, taking in every little thing. Birds chirped lazily above, and somewhere in the distance, water trickled. Then I saw it, a forest just beyond the rise. Tall trees, leaves glinting in the sunlight like little pieces of emerald glass. It didn't feel threatening. It felt peaceful, like it was waiting for me. I stepped into the forest. The ground softened under my boots, and everything went quiet, just enough to let my mind speak up again. What if this was part of the plan? What if Cassian wanted me to wander, or worse, what if I was just walking right into another vision, another memory, another prophecy trying to write itself before I had the chance to say no? I touched the rough bark of a tree beside me, grounding myself in the present. Right now, I wasn't a prophecy. I wasn't a bride. I wasn't a pawn or a prize or a mystery. I was just Ember, and I was finally moving on my own. Whatever came next, I'd face it, but I'd face it as me. I was already turning back toward the fortress. I'd gotten what I needed: fresh air, a clear head, the proof that I wasn't trapped. The idea of Cassian finally telling me everything, it tugged at me. I was done with secrets. My boots barely made a sound against the dirt trail as I walked, brushing past low branches and stepping over roots. Just a few more minutes, and I'd be back inside. I could already picture the stone walls, the warmth of the fire, his eyes watching me like he saw more than I was ready to admit. But then, a crack, a sharp snap behind me. I stopped, and that's when I saw them. A group of men stepped out from behind the trees, at least 6 of them. Big, broad, all muscle and smirks. They looked like they hadn't showered in weeks, eyes too wild to be normal. One of them licked his bottom lip, like I was some dessert on a tray.
Where you going, beautiful?
I didn't flinch, didn't back up either, my fingers curled into fists. Out of my way. He chuckled, stepping into my path.
Come on, we just want to talk. You're walking all alone. Not real smart, is it?
I took a breath, real slow, kept my cool. Maybe you're messing with the wrong one. I looked him straight in the eye. Back off, while you still can. That should have been their cue. Should have made him rethink this whole scene. But nope. Instead, one of them cracked his neck, and right in front of me, he shifted. Bones cracked, skin split, fur ripped through clothes. The others followed, fast. Within seconds, I was staring down a pack of full-grown, rogue werewolves. I didn't wait. No hesitation. I shifted too. The second my paws hit the ground, I lunged. I took the first one down hard, claws out, fangs snapping. He wasn't ready. His body hit the dirt with a thud. The second tried to circle behind me. I caught his ankle with my teeth and flung him sideways like he was nothing but a rag doll. The third charged. I slammed into him, rolled him into a tree, and felt the bark splinter from the impact. 3 down. But then, more came. I heard the snarls before I saw them. 2, no, 3 more rogues burst from the trees. They were faster, more brutal. The kind of wolves that didn't care about playing fair. They came at me together. One caught my side, the other bit into my leg. I fought, hard. Every move was instinct. I spun, ducked, snapped, slammed them down, again and again. I left a trail of bruised wolves behind me, my fur streaked with dirt and blood that wasn't mine. But they didn't stop. One grabbed me from behind while another struck my jaw, dazing me. My knees buckled. I tried to get up, tried to shift back and gain control, but they were too many. My vision blurred and the world tilted sideways. The last thing I saw was their claws grabbing me, dragging me through the woods. I kicked, thrashed, bit, but they were faster now, more desperate. They dragged me for what felt like forever until we reached this old, crumbling den buried into a hill. Looked like a hideout someone had given up on years ago. Moss-covered stone, broken wood, rusted chains hanging from hooks in the wall. They tossed me in like a sack of laundry. And then they caged me. I hit the ground hard. My shoulder burned, but I pushed myself up on one elbow, breathing fast. They stood over me, shifting back into their human forms, laughing like this was all a game.
She's strong.
One of them said, licking a cut on his arm.
Bet she's fun to break.
She's mine.
Another snapped.
I found her first.
Back off, Travis.
The third growled.
You couldn't handle her, even if she let you.
They started bickering, loud, aggressive, arguing over me like I was a toy. My blood boiled. I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth hurt. But I stayed quiet, watching, listening, planning. They were dumb, loud-mouthed, fighting each other instead of watching me. I could use that. But then I heard it. A sound, soft but steady. Boots crunching leaves, closer, louder. Heavy steps, calm, controlled. Something was coming, and every single one of those rogues froze. Their bickering stopped. Their laughter died. They sniffed the air, eyes wide, panic rising. I didn't know who it was yet, but by the way their faces drained of color, whoever was out there wasn't someone they wanted to meet. And somehow, deep in my gut, I had a feeling they were here for me. The sound grew louder, boots stomping, armor clanking, growls, snarls, shouts. The rogues around me spun toward the entrance of the den like scared animals caught in headlights. One of them dropped the chain he was holding. Another cursed under his breath and stepped back. Then I saw him, Jackson, charging in like some damn knight from a war movie. His soldiers followed, wolves and men both, storming the place like they were born for battle. Dozens of them, maybe more. Shadows swept through the trees. Bodies collided. Claws clashed. It was chaos. And the rogues? They didn't stand a chance. They lunged, desperate, reckless, teeth flashing. But Jackson's pack was trained, fast, brutal. They took them down like it was nothing. A blur of fur and metal, growls ripping through the woods. While the fight broke out, I didn't waste time. I kicked the cage door hard, once, twice. The third time, the lock cracked. I pushed it open, stumbling out with bare feet hitting cold stone. I didn't wait to think. My eyes locked on the direction of Cassian's fortress, and that's where my feet started moving. That was home now. That's where my mind ran to. Cassian. His voice, the way he looked at me like I mattered, like he knew me. I didn't owe Jackson a thing.
Ember!
I froze. My spine stiffened. His voice, deep, familiar, too familiar. I turned around slowly. Jackson stood there, his shirt torn at the sleeve, a cut on his cheek already healing. His eyes locked on mine, like he was searching for something, maybe guilt, maybe regret. I wasn't sure.
Where are you going?
He asked, raising a brow. I gave him the blandest smile I could fake. Nowhere, just walking around.
Wow,
He said, laughing once, dry and sharp.
ain't that sweet? I've been looking for you for days, thought you were hurt, taken, maybe worse. I roll in, fight off a whole damn den of rogues to get to you, And you were just walking around?
He wasn't yelling, but that tone, it cut. Like he was angry I didn't fall into his arms and cry over his hero moment. I didn't answer, just smiled again, small, polite. The kind of smile you give someone who's trying too hard to rewrite history. He stepped closer, and before I could step back, his arms wrapped around me, hugging me like we were childhood friends meeting at a high school reunion. It felt off, all wrong, stiff. I let him. But inside, I wanted to scream. You don't get to hug me like that after rejecting me like garbage on my birthday. You don't get to act like we're something when you made it very clear we were nothing. And still, I stood there. He pulled back, his hand brushing a strand of hair from my cheek.
Look,
He said softly.
I'm sorry about what happened that night. I wasn't ready, or maybe I told you the truth and couldn't face it.
I blinked. The truth? He looked away for a second, jaw clenching.
Yeah, there's more to it than you know, a lot more. But I was scared. That's on me.
My chest tightened, not the way it used to around him, but in a different way. Suspicion, curiosity. A flicker of something unfinished. I see, I said, quiet. So, what's the truth? He looked like he was about to spill it all, right there. But instead he glanced at the soldiers gathering the last of the defeated rogues, and then back at me.
First,
He said, voice low.
let's get out of here.
I hesitated. My eyes flicked toward the trees, toward where Cassian's fortress waited, far beyond the woods. But Jackson had just saved me. He had risked his pack, fought for me, and maybe, just maybe, he deserved a chance to speak, even if part of me wanted to run in the opposite direction. So I nodded, just once, and walked beside him. No hand-holding, no pretending. Just two people walking in silence while soldiers marched behind. I never thought I'd end up at Jackson's fortress again, but here I was, returning not because I trusted him, not because I forgot what he did, but because something in his voice said the truth was going to change everything. And the second we stepped past those gates, I could feel it. The past wasn't done with me yet, and neither was he. Walking back into Jackson's fortress felt strange, like stepping into a dream I didn't sign up for. The big iron gates opened, and the second I crossed them, I felt it. Eyes. All over me. Wolves standing around, some with armor, some with aprons. Guards, servants, familiar faces from my old life here. Every one of them stopped whatever they were doing just to stare. And not like that girl's back kind of stare. This was different. They looked at me like I'd been resurrected, like I was some long-lost queen who finally returned to claim a throne I didn't ask for. I saw the ones who used to laugh behind my back. I still remembered their smirks, their snide jokes about how an alpha's mate got dumped like a sack of garbage. Now, their heads dipped down, not mockingly, but with respect. I didn't buy it. That kind of change doesn't come from guilt. Someone told them to behave. Jackson. It had to be. He was pulling some kind of strings here. I just didn't know why yet. He didn't take me to my old room either. Instead, he led me to a whole new space on the top floor, just across from his room. Like real close. Too close. It was huge. High ceilings, silver silk curtains, dark wood furniture that probably cost more than what I made in a year, and a king-size bed so soft I almost melted when I sat on it.
Thought you deserved better this time,
Jackson said, watching me like he wanted a reaction. I just raised my eyebrows a little and said, "Well, this sure isn't the moldy closet you gave me last time." He smiled, but I didn't. I kept thinking, what's the game? What's he really after? Then came lunch. And let me tell you, it was the weirdest lunch I've ever had. The main dining hall, where I used to walk past like a ghost, now had a seat saved for me at the high table. Yeah, that high table, the one where pack elites sat. I never once ate there, not even when I was his supposed mate. But now, suddenly I'm front and center like I'm royalty or something. I sat down slow, real slow, eyes scanning every face. Nobody looked away. They were all watching me like I was made of glass. Then Jackson stood up, raised his wine glass, and said,
"In the name of Ember."
and everyone toasted. What in the hell was going on? I didn't sip the wine, just held the glass in my hand, watching him over the rim. His smile didn't reach his eyes. After lunch, he came to me and asked if I'd take a walk with him. I didn't say yes or no, just followed. We walked along the stone path outside the fortress walls, where the wind carried the sound of distant training and the sun hit just right between the trees. It was almost peaceful. Almost.
"Ember,
He started, hands in his pockets.
there are things you need to know before someone else tells you their version."
There it was. I knew exactly who he was talking about. Cassian? Of course, but I didn't mention it. Not playing dumb. He looked sideways at me, but didn't deny it. You think I could be manipulated? I crossed my arms, keeping my pace with his. You think I can't think for myself?
"I didn't say that.
He replied.
I just think you deserve to know our story.
I didn't say anything. I let him talk.
This fortress, it's not what it used to be.
We said.
Not everyone in it is loyal anymore. Some pretend, some lie, some are waiting for their moment to betray."
That's every fortress, I said. No pack is perfect. What's the big deal? He stopped walking.
"You,
He said quietly.
you're the big deal.
I blinked. He turned to face me fully.
You're not just any wolf, Ember. You come from a bloodline that's powerful, legendary, one that hasn't been fully awakened yet."
My arms dropped to my sides. I tilted my head slightly, confused. Okay, you can't just throw that at me and not explain. What bloodline? Instead of answering, he motioned for me to follow him. We headed through a hallway I didn't even know existed, hidden behind a staircase near the east wing. The air got cooler. The stone walls were older here, untouched. We passed 2 guards who didn't say a word, just stepped aside like they were trained for this moment. He opened a thick wooden door, and inside was a room. Small but elegant, candlelit, sealed tight. Only a handful of people had ever probably stepped inside here, and there, on the far wall, was a painting. I stepped toward it, something pulling me in. It was beautiful, no doubt, detailed, ancient-looking. But what made my skin crawl was the faces. The couple in the painting. It was me and Jackson, but seemed like it was made decades ago. I stared, my pulse quickening, my breath slowing. Same eyes, same long hair, same curve of my jawline. It wasn't just similar, it was me. The man beside her had Jackson's signature stare, the one that said, "I know more than I'm letting on." I looked at Jackson, then back at the painting. "What the hell?" I whispered. Jackson stood beside me, quiet for a second. Then he said,
"Now, let me tell you why you were always meant to be by my side."
I stood in front of that painting, my arms folded, my eyes locked on the face that looked too much like mine to be a coincidence. My throat felt dry, and my hands were cold, even though the room was warm and still. "Okay," I said, breaking the silence. "Start talking." Jackson took a step closer to the painting, his jaw tight like he'd been holding on to something too long.
"That's not just a painting, Ember. That's a memory. Our memory."
He said, voice low but sharp.
"You and I, we were mates, real ones, decades ago."
I blinked. "What?" He turned toward me, his eyes searching my face like he was hoping to see recognition in my eyes. But all I had was confusion.
"We were happy,"
He said.
until Cassian showed up.
The second he said Cassian's name, I felt this weird twist behind my ribs, a flicker of something I couldn't place. Jackson kept going.
"He wasn't the royal charming vampire like now. He was hunting something, someone. You.
I frowned. Me? He nodded once.
You were the strongest she-wolf of that time. Not just physically, Ember. Power, true ancient power, ran in your blood. Cassian wanted that. Not love, not a bond. He wanted a bride that could rule beside him, a force to match his.
My lips parted, but I didn't say anything. My mind was already running 100 miles a minute.
Cassian knew he couldn't win you over, truthfully, so he did what he's always done. He twisted the truth.
Jackson said.
He told you I was cheating, that I'd betrayed you.
I narrowed my eyes. That's a big accusation.
He didn't stop at lies.
Jackson said.
He used dark magic, shadow binding, ancient stuff, stuff that infects your mind, makes you believe things that never happened. You turned on me, Ember. You married him.
I couldn't breathe for a second. My chest felt like it was too small to hold all the questions exploding in my head. You're saying I betrayed you? I whispered. Jackson looked down at the floor.
You did, but not really. Because you were never yourself after that. Not really. And I tried. I went to war for you. I fought Cassian. I tried to bring you back.
I rubbed my fingers along my wrist without realizing it. The memory of that forest cage still so fresh.
But you didn't help me,
he said quietly.
You stood with him, and I...
He took a breath like the memory still crushed him.
He defeated me, and then everything burned. Time passed, but now, here we are.
My body felt frozen, like I'd stepped into someone else's nightmare. You're saying we've been reborn? I asked, finally managing to make eye contact again.
Yes,
he said.
You feel it too, don't you? That pull between us. It's not new. It's ancient. The bond survived death. Fate gave us a second shot.
I looked at the painting again. The way his hand rested on her back. The way her eyes, my eyes, looked up at him. It didn't feel fake. But that didn't mean it was true either. I felt attracted towards Jackson always until he rejected me that day. As of now, I had nothing to take interest on Jackson except this truth about painting. So why reject me, I asked. If all of this is real, why throw me away?
Because they are watching,
he said immediately.
There are spies in my fortress. They work for him. If I accepted you as my mate in front of them, word would have gone straight to Cassian. He would have known you'd broken free, and he would have come for you again.
I leaned back against the wall, my arms folded tighter across my chest. Jackson, I said slowly, you're asking me to believe that I had a whole life I can't remember, that I was some kind of powerful queen. And Cassian, once and past, he manipulated me, used me, mind-controlled me, and then married me. I didn't mention, but inside I knew that Cassian, who saved me from the rogue wolves, who treated me with nothing but respect.
Yes,
Jackson said, without blinking.
And if you don't believe me now, you will. You'll feel it. That truth is inside you.
I let out a long breath. So what now?
We leave,
he said.
This fortress isn't safe anymore. If we marry in secret, away from these walls, we can protect the bond, protect each other. Then we find the rest of the truth together.
I tilted my head, letting him think I was all in. That's a lot, I said. It's a lot to process.
I know.
Then I paused, pretending like I just remembered something. I've been having dreams, I said, my voice soft, like I wasn't sure if I should say it out loud. Strange ones. Jackson turned to me instantly.
What kind of dreams?
There's this man. I never see his face clearly, but he sits beside me. I feel safe. Then you show up. There's fighting, and I run. I wake up in the woods where the rogue wolves captured me. I made sure not to say Cassian. I needed Jackson to think I was on his side now, that I believed his version.
You were with them this whole time?
He asked, his brows drawn tight. I nodded, lying through my teeth. Yeah, the rogue wolves had me. I managed to break out just before you came. He looked relieved, like I'd just handed him proof he needed. But in my head, everything was spinning. Was Cassian the villain Jackson claimed? Or was this just another web, one I couldn't see clearly yet? I didn't know what the truth was, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let either of them write my story for me. I'd find out the truth myself, even if it tore everything apart. I followed Jackson deeper into the room, my boots tapping against the cold marble floor. Every step felt heavier, not because of fear, but because I didn't know where this was heading. You said you wanted the truth, he said over his shoulder. I'm not done showing you yet. He stopped in front of another painting, this one draped under an old velvet cloth. He looked at it like it held a secret he'd kept buried for too long. Then he pulled the cloth off. I sucked in a breath. It was me and him, not just standing side by side, but sitting in this massive golden chair, curled toward each other like nothing else mattered. My face, her face, was turned to him, smiling like he hung the damn moon. And his eyes, they were locked on me, soft and unguarded. Nothing like the cold alpha everyone else saw.
This was painted before Cassian ever stepped into our lives.
Jackson said, keeping his voice even.
Back when it was just us. No war, no dark magic, just two people in love.
I couldn't stop staring at it. The version of me in that painting looked happy, like she belonged. I don't remember this, I whispered. He glanced at me.
I didn't expect you to. That's why I brought this too.
From behind a shelf, he pulled out an old leather-bound diary. The edges were frayed, the corners bent, like it had been flipped through too many times. He handed it to me.
Go ahead, pick any page.
I opened it slowly, my fingers brushing across the paper. It smelled old, like time itself had soaked into the ink. I flipped halfway through and landed on a page with slanted, neat handwriting. My handwriting. I stared at the words like they might jump off the page and slap me awake. Today, I found my love. He's too handsome and caring. I love him, Jackson. I read it twice, 3 times. The letters didn't just look like mine. They were mine. The loops, the curves, the way I crossed my T's a little too high. This wasn't forged. This was real. I slowly looked up at him. He was watching me closely, but he didn't say a word. How did you get this? I asked.
I found it buried in the old ruins of our former land.
He said quietly.
Took me years. I held on to it, hoping one day you'd remember.
I closed the diary, pressing my palm against the cover like I was trying to feel something, anything, from the girl who once wrote those words.
Do you believe me now?
He asked. I wanted to fight it. I wanted to scream that it wasn't possible. But that diary, that painting. I think I do, I said softly. He exhaled like he'd been holding that breath for decades. But I raised a brow. There's one thing I don't get.
What's that?
If you remember everything from our past life, then why don't I? He stepped closer.
Cassian, he didn't just take you. He rewrote your mind. Maybe that's why it's taking longer for things to come back.
I looked down at my hands, flexing my fingers like maybe the memories were hiding in there somewhere.
Or maybe,
he continued,
it'll just take time. The bond is still there, Ember. It's just buried.
I wasn't sure if that made me feel better or worse. All right, I said, clearing my throat. So what now?
We leave this place tomorrow,
Jackson said firmly.
There's a church far from here. I know a priest. He's loyal. He'll marry us in secret.
My breath caught. Marry?
Yes,
He said without blinking.
mate and marry. The right way. Not under lies. Not with Cassian's poison between us. And then we will return.
I hesitated. But didn't you say that if we stay here and Cassian finds out, he'll come after me? Jackson's lips curled into something between a smirk and a challenge.
That's why we do it in secret. And once we're mated, truly mated, our bond will be sealed. Not even Cassian can break it. Not with magic, not with power. He won't be able to touch you. He'll be forced to watch while we stand together. He can't stop fate.
I blinked at him, stunned. Wait, so once we
spend the night together,
he said, carefully choosing his words.
that connection becomes permanent. It roots deep. The kind of bond that can't be undone. You'll be mine in a way Cassian can never take.
My face went warm, and I turned my eyes to the floor. That's a lot,
I'm not rushing you.
he said gently.
I just want us to do it right. Quiet, safe. Then we come back, stand strong, and no one can tear us apart again.
The way he said it, like a vow, I paused, thinking of the diary in my hand, the words I wrote, whoever that past version of me was, the girl who believed in Jackson, the girl who loved him so much she wrote about it like a fairy tale. Maybe that girl still lived somewhere inside me. All right, I said finally. We'll go, we'll marry, we'll spend the night, and then we come back. His eyes lit up with something like hope, and something a little wilder too.
Tomorrow at dawn,
he said.
Pack light, we ride fast.
I gave him a small smile. Don't be late. He chuckled, and for a second I saw the boy from the painting in his smile. Young, in love, unbroken. But as he walked me back to my room, I wasn't thinking about wedding dresses or some happily ever after. I was thinking about the truth, the real one, because somewhere between Jackson's stories and Cassian's silence, I knew I was still missing something, and I wasn't stopping till I had it. As soon as I stepped into my new room, I shut the door behind me and turned the lock with a quiet click. The room was grand. Walls painted a soft cream, velvet curtains falling like waterfalls beside the tall windows, and a chandelier above that sparkled like 1,000 secrets. But even with all its charm, I didn't pause to admire it. I tossed my cloak onto the edge of the bed and dropped to the floor beside my bag, digging through it like a woman on a mission. And there it was, the diary, the one I'd slipped under my arm without Jackson noticing when he left it out. My fingers curled around the worn leather cover like it was some kind of lifeline. My hands were a little shaky, but my mind? Laser focused. I sat on the plush rug, leaned against the bed, and opened it slowly, page after page of ink, faded but still legible. The handwriting, definitely mine. Slanted, a little messy when I was excited, neater when I was pouring my feelings out like a schoolgirl, crushing hard. Jackson made me laugh again today. I swear, that boy could charm the snow off a mountain. He asked me today if I ever thought about getting married. I told him I already do, every time I look at him. I think I love him. No, I know I do. I pressed my palm flat over that last line, my throat feeling dry. I didn't even know what to feel anymore. But I couldn't lie to myself. This wasn't just a story someone else wrote. These were my words, my emotions, my truth. Even if it belonged to a version of me I still didn't fully remember. I let out a slow breath and closed the diary carefully, like it might break if I moved too fast. Then I stood up, walked to the wardrobe, and placed it behind a stack of folded furs, deep in the back. I locked the wardrobe and tucked the key into the inside pocket of my sleeve. No one needed to know just yet. This was mine. Dinner was as fancy as you'd expect from a royal-level wolf pack. The dining hall looked like a movie set, with long golden candelabras, glittering plates, and wolves dressed like they were attending some political gala. For the first time, I was sitting with them, as one of them, not as a guest, not as an outsider. I was officially moved into the alpha class, but all I could think about was the escape. I played it cool, ate slowly, gave polite smiles, let my eyes meet Jackson's across the table now and then, just enough for it to seem natural. We didn't speak, not in front of everyone, but something in his gaze told me he was still riding high on hope. When dinner finally ended, I walked back to my room like everything was normal. About 20 minutes later, there was a soft knock at my door. Not urgent, not demanding, just familiar. I opened it, and there he was. Jackson stepped in, closed the door behind him, then gently kissed my cheek.
Ember,
He said, his voice low.
We're made for each other. Don't doubt that, not even for a second.
I smiled, brushing a piece of hair behind my ear. Then I leaned in and kissed his cheek back. I don't, That diary, it's proof. But you gotta remember something, Jackson. He tilted his head, watching me closely. I walked a little away from him, pacing slowly while I spoke. You might remember everything from our past. The love, the plans, the dreams. But for me, this is brand new. I don't have those memories. I'm not doing this because I used to love you once. I'm doing it because you believe we're mates. And I believe that you can be a good man, a loyal one, the kind who won't break my heart. His expression softened.
I won't. I swear I won't.
I stopped pacing and looked straight at him. Then don't treat me like the old Ember. Treat me like the woman standing in front of you now. Let me choose you, not because fate says so, but because I do. He stepped closer, slow and careful, like he didn't want to startle me.
Then let this be a new chapter,
he said.
But the love? It's real, and in time you'll feel it. I'll make sure of that.
There was something about the way he said it. Not cocky, not pushy, just full of quiet certainty, like he already saw our future unfolding. Then he leaned in just a little more.
Can I?
I didn't say anything, just looked him in the eye, and tilted my chin the slightest bit. He kissed me. Software. Slow. No rush. No force. Just his lips brushing mine, like he was giving me time to pull away if I wanted to. I didn't. When he pulled back, he wrapped his arms around me and kissed the top of my head.
You're gonna be the happiest mate in history, I swear.
Then he stepped away and slipped out of the room as quietly as he came. That night, I barely slept. Not because I was nervous, but because my mind wouldn't stop spinning. About the past, the future, the truth I still didn't fully have. But when the first light started to peek through the curtains, I was already dressed. Black pants, a warm cloak, soft leather boots. My hair braided tight and out of the way. I grabbed my small pack, double-checked the hidden key to the wardrobe, and took one last glance around the room. Then I slipped out into the hallway. Jackson was already waiting near the east tower, just like we planned. His coat was pulled tight, and his jaw was set like he was ready to face anything.
You ready?
He asked quietly. I looked him in the eye and gave the smallest smile. Let's go. We didn't waste a second. Through the back corridors, down the servant paths, past the guarded walls, silent, quick, like shadows moving through a storm. And then, we were gone, vanished from the fortress, running straight toward the unknown, together. The sun was barely up when we reached the edge of the woods. A cold breeze brushed across my face, tugging at the ends of my hair. There, just past a crooked iron gate, stood the church. It was small, old, like it had seen centuries of secrets, and quiet. Way too quiet. The stones were moss-covered, and vines hugged the walls like time itself had tried to swallow it. But there was something sacred about it, something untouched. I glanced at Jackson. His eyes stayed forward, jaw clenched, like he was marching straight into destiny. We walked through the doors. The wooden floor creaked beneath our boots. Candles flickered on the altar. A priest in faded white robes stood waiting. He didn't smile, didn't greet us, just looked at us like he already knew why we were there. But before I could take a step forward, everything changed. Suddenly, I wasn't in the church anymore. The walls disappeared, the candles vanished, my breath caught. I was standing in the middle of a cemetery. Graves stretched around me like a maze. Wind howled between the trees. And there, at the very center, stood Cassian. Tall, still, eyes darker than ever. Behind him sat a black coffin, half buried. My steps slowed as I walked toward it. There was a nameplate on it, Ember. What is this? I asked, my voice coming out a little breathless. How did I get here? Cassian turned slowly, his face unreadable.
This is a vision. My vision. This place, it belongs to me. I can bring you here anytime, from anywhere.
I froze. Why would you do that?
Because you ran.
He said, voice low but sharp.
You left my fortress without a word, without reason. Just tell me where you are.
I folded my arms tight across my chest. Why would I trust you?
You did trust me.
He shot back.
You let me protect you. You told me you felt something. And now you're running?
I blinked at him. I know what you did. You tried to separate me from Jackson. You didn't want us to remember. You manipulated me. And I will never tell you where I am. Cassian's lips twitched like he was holding something back.
Jackson was never your lover, Ember.
I said I had read my own diary. It says everything. He replied.
That diary he gave you? That's not the truth.
I glared at him. I read it, every word. I know what I felt for him. He shook his head slowly.
That diary is a lie. It's a copy, a forged version. You have no idea what was changed.
Something inside me wavered. Cassian stepped closer.
There's an original, one I never gave you. It's in my fortress, hidden where no one can alter it. If you ever want the truth, real truth, you'll have to find that one.
My voice came out barely above a whisper. How will I even know which one's real? He paused, then looked me square in the eye.
The real diary can't burn. No magic, no fire can destroy it. Because until our souls are joined, that diary is immortal. A piece of both of us. You want proof? Test it.
I couldn't breathe, not fully. My head felt like it was spinning in a dozen directions. Then Cassian said one last thing.
Don't trust him. Don't let yourself get played. Again.
And just like that, I blinked, and I was on the floor of the church. My vision cleared, and I saw Jackson's face hovering above mine, concern written all over it.
Ember,
He breathed, brushing the hair off my face.
what just happened? You fell. You weren't waking up.
I sat up slowly, pressing my palm to my forehead. I don't know. I feel sick. He exhaled hard.
That's what happens when you make decisions too fast.
I stared at him. This isn't about decisions, Jackson. I really feel sick. He stood, his hands on his hips, looking tense.
Or maybe you're not sure about me, about this.
I caught something in his voice, something sharp hiding under the sweetness. I am sure, I said quickly, too quickly maybe. He stepped closer, crouched in front of me.
Once we marry, Ember, no one can touch us, no one can tear us apart. You have to trust me, please.
I looked down at my hands. They were trembling just a little. I believe you, I murmured. But I want to step outside for a minute, get some air.
You can't.
He said, shaking his head fast.
You have no idea what Cassian can do. He's powerful, manipulative. He uses dark magic. He messes with your thoughts. He can even give you visions. They won't be real. That's how he tricks you, makes you doubt me.
My eyes shot up to meet his. He can give me visions, I whispered. He hesitated.
I know what he's capable of.
Something in me began to twist and turn. I didn't know who was telling the truth anymore. Jackson, I said, voice softer now. I want to hold that diary. The one you gave me. I want to hold it during the ceremony. He blinked, caught off guard.
Why?
I met his eyes. Because I feel connected to you when I hold it. It grounds me, makes me feel like I'm doing the right thing. He gave a quick smile, almost relieved.
Why didn't you tell me that earlier?
Can I go get it? I asked, trying to sound calm. He paused.
It's not safe. Let me go. Just give me 10 minutes. I'll be back before you even notice I'm gone.
I stared at him a beat too long. Then I nodded slowly. Okay, but please, be quick. Jackson brushed his lips against my forehead.
I will. Just stay inside. Don't step out, no matter what.
Of course, I said, and then he left, leaving me alone in that quiet church, with 1,000 questions I didn't have the answers to. As soon as Jackson stepped out of the church, everything inside me started spinning again. My eyes stayed glued to the altar, but my thoughts were a wreck. What if Cassian was telling the truth? He said the original diary wouldn't catch fire, that it was bound to us, our souls, immortal until we were one. But what if that was the trap? A slick little game to mess with my mind and stop me from marrying Jackson. What if this was Cassian's last-ditch effort to keep me under his thumb? My fingers twitched on my dress. I bit the inside of my cheek. My brain couldn't stop racing. There had to be a way to test it, without giving myself away. Then it hit me. If the diary does catch fire, and it burns down to ash, then Cassian's story is just smoke and mirrors. But if it doesn't burn, then everything I thought I knew about Jackson, about us, might be a lie. The church doors creaked open. I turned fast. Jackson walked in, holding the diary like it was made of gold. He looked proud, like a knight returning from some heroic quest. He placed it in my hands and brushed his fingers over mine.
Here, just like I promised.
Thanks, I whispered, curling my fingers around it. It felt heavier than I remembered. The priest cleared his throat behind us.
Shall we proceed now?
I glanced at Jackson. His face softened, like this was the moment he'd been waiting his whole life for. I gave the priest a small smile. Of course. He started the ceremony, reading from some old book with fading pages. His voice echoed through the quiet church, but all I could hear was the buzz in my head. Jackson stood beside me, his hand brushing mine occasionally. He looked so damn satisfied. His eyes stayed locked on me, like he already knew he'd won. I forced a smile, even though everything inside me was screaming. The vows started. He said his, I said mine. And just when the priest lifted his hand to pronounce us, I made my move. I gasped and stumbled forward, just a little, and the diary slipped from my hands, landing straight into the small fire beside the altar. Oh, I said quickly, covering my mouth. Jackson froze.
What the hell just happened?
I'm so sorry, I said, eyes wide, pretending like I didn't mean it. I didn't mean to. My hands just... We all turned toward the flames, and the diary caught fire. The edges curled black, flames licking through the pages. I just stared. Like the world stopped moving, so it was fake. But what if Cassian's whole statement was a lie? Maybe the original one also catches fire? But one thing I had knew now that this diary does catch fire. So if the original one doesn't catch fire, then this diary is fake. Maybe Cassian was telling the truth. The real diary wouldn't burn. He wasn't lying. But Jackson had lied. And I just married him. But I wasn't that sure that Cassian is telling the truth. But at least I had checked that this diary catches fire. But when the diary started to burn, Jackson's eyes were fixed on mine, like he was reading me. It seemed like he also knew that the original one doesn't catch his fire, but he didn't know that now I also know it. The way he saw me in the diary every fraction of second, I can tell you, he was afraid of something for sure. Still, I stood there and finished it. The ceremony was done. Vows were sealed. The priest pronounced us husband and wife, and Jackson kissed me. I kissed him back. My lips moved, but my mind was somewhere else completely. I couldn't even describe what I was feeling. My body was still, my heart was silent, and all I could hear in my head was, "You just married a stranger." But I had to act. I had to stay calm. If Jackson suspected even for a second that I knew the truth, who knows what he'd do? So I smiled through it all. When we stepped out of the church, I turned to him. Let's spend the night in the forest. Just us. His brows lifted.
Really?
Yeah, I said, pretending to be sweet. No one will disturb us. It'll be our little celebration. He liked the sound of that. Minutes later, we were walking deeper into the woods, the trees crowding around us like silent watchers. Jackson carried a small bag. He'd packed food, of course. We stopped at a small clearing. He laid down a blanket, pulled out sandwiches, apples, and a bottle of water. Basic stuff. We sat side by side, chewing in silence. He was watching me again, always watching. Like I was some kind of prize he'd finally bagged. After a few bites, he looked up.
We can't wait till night.
I knew exactly what he meant. I smiled faintly. This place is kinda open. Anyone could wander by, especially during the day. He raised an eyebrow.
Then let's go deeper.
I nodded. We walked further until the trees grew thicker and the sky above faded into patches. This was wild territory. Nobody would come here unless they had a death wish. I looked around, pretending to be impressed. Here's good,
I thought you were sick.
he asked, slipping his arm around my waist. I still am, I said, giving him a look. That hasn't changed. He let out a soft laugh and dropped down onto the blanket. I followed, lying beside him. But my mind was racing. My head rested on my arm. I closed my eyes, and in my thoughts, I whispered, where could I find Cassian? Suddenly, I was there. Same place, same graveyard, same coffin. Cassian stood just a few feet away, but he wasn't his usual self. His shoulders looked heavier, his eyes dimmer. He didn't speak right away. How did you? I asked.
You called me.
He said quietly. I stepped toward him. The diary caught fire. He looked up.
Just like I said.
I hesitated. I want the real diary. I want to read it.
You must.
He said. Can you bring it here? Cassian's eyes flickered.
I already did.
He handed it to me. The leather was worn, soft, aged like it had lived 1,000 years. I opened the pages slowly. Same words, same stories. But something felt real this time. The ink had depth. The paper had soul. Then I noticed something. Every word, same ink color. Smooth, consistent. Unlike the one I read before, where some words, just a few, were written in a different shade. Jackson's diary, I whispered to myself. Before I could say more, I was snapped back. The forest, the blanket, the daylight. I was awake. And Jackson was sitting beside me, staring hard. Did you save the diary? I asked, my voice casual. Since it caught fire and all.
Of course I did.
He said, reaching into his bag.
It's a little burnt, but at least we have it.
He handed it to me. My hands trembled slightly as I took it. I flipped through the pages, and there it was. One line. I love Jackson. Slightly darker ink. Different than the rest. I squinted, looked closer. It wasn't written with the same hand. Or at the same time. It was added later. He rewrote history. I looked up at Jackson. He smiled like everything was perfect. But I knew the truth now. I was trapped in a lie. Wearing a white dress. And a ring I didn't choose. Cassian was right. And I didn't know how to reach him. But one thing was clear. I had to get out of this before it was too late. I need to hunt, I said, keeping my tone calm, casual, like it was just a craving, not a strategy. I feel like, I don't know, something wild inside me scratching at my ribs. I need to let it out. Jackson's expression shifted. His jaw ticked like he was clenching back a no.
Now? You're still sick, Ember.
I shrugged and looked off into the woods like it wasn't a big deal. Yeah, I was, but now I'm better. I swear, it's just the craving. You know how we get sometimes. I turned toward him, looking him dead in the eye. If you actually loved me, you'd let me have this one thing. That worked. He flinched like I'd slapped him. His eyes darted, calculating.
Don't say that,
he said, voice low, tense.
Of course I love you. You know I do.
I crossed my arms. Then prove it. Let's hunt. Just a little. I'm not asking for much. He hesitated, and then he gave me that same fake half smile he always gave when he wanted to play the hero.
All right, just a short hunt. But don't wear yourself out, okay? We've got plans tonight.
Plans? Yeah, I knew exactly what that meant. We moved through the trees, careful, quiet. I played my role perfectly. My movements were light but not too fast, my steps natural. I chased a rabbit for show, missing it on purpose, and acted annoyed when it slipped away. Jackson laughed softly behind me, thinking I was just being my usual self. But every move I made was calculated. Every glance over my shoulder, every step I took slightly off trail. I was trying to slip away, slowly, carefully. I'd inch further and further each time we pounced on a target. But Jackson was always right there, watching me, close enough that I never got more than a few feet out of his reach. Damn it. I was too smart to be obvious, and he was too desperate to watch me. The sun dipped behind the trees. Shadows stretched long and slow, turning everything gold, then gray. And just like that, night fell. We made a fire in a quiet little clearing, hidden from everything. The way the trees circled around us, it felt like a trap disguised as a safe place. Jackson laid out the food, acting like we were on some sweet little picnic date. He handed me a sandwich like that made it all okay. "You really think you can buy my silence with ham and cheese?" I asked, teasing, but not really joking. He laughed, brushing crumbs off his hands.
Well, you didn't run screaming yet. That's a win.
If only he knew. After we ate, he leaned back and stretched. His shirt rode up just a little, and I could feel his eyes tracing my body. It made my skin crawl.
We can't wait till night,
he said, voice low, eyes locked on me like I was some prize he'd earned. I swallowed. This place is open. I mean,
No one's out here.
he said.
Not this deep.
I stood and brushed my hands on my pants. He blinked, surprised.
Ember, you are so beautiful.
Thanks, I said, trying to sound soft, like I was warming up to him. He looked at me like I was the last thing on earth he needed to conquer. I sat down, rubbing my arms. I'm tired. I still feel a little off.
Lay down,
he said, pulling off his jacket and putting it beside me like a pillow. I did. He looked at me like he owned the moment, like he owned me. And I hated how part of him wanted me to surrender, just to feel something other than chaos inside my head.
I miss this,
Jackson whispered, brushing a loose strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered a little too long against my cheek.
You and me, like before.
I forced a smile, even though my insides were tangled up like old wires. Feels like forever ago. His hand slid down my arm, then around my waist. I didn't stop him, because if I did, he will know that something is wrong. My breath caught as he leaned in, kissing the corner of my mouth first, slow and soft, like he was testing if I'd pull away. I didn't. I let his lips find mine, warm and claiming. His touch made my skin prickle, and for a second, I let the confusion drift. He deepened the kiss, his fingers slipping under the fabric at my lower back. My body leaned into him on instinct.
Tell me you want this.
He whispered against my lips. I hesitated. My heart was racing. My mind screamed to stall, but I had to pretend that I was enjoying. Yes, I whispered back. His eyes searched mine for a second. Then his lips moved down to my jaw, trailing kisses along my neckline. I closed my eyes. I shouldn't be doing this. His hands found my waist, pulling me closer until I was straddling his lap, my knees sinking into the blanket he'd laid out beneath us. His touch was gentle but firm, guiding, exploring. He leaned in again, pressing his lips to my collarbone, then lower, making my breath stutter. His fingers brushed over my side, grazing the hem of my dress. Then something shifted. As his lips moved lower, as my dress slipped off my shoulder and I tilted my head back, I saw something, like someone pulled a curtain back in my mind and light just poured in. I wasn't here anymore. I was somewhere else. I was with him. Cassian. I saw a fireplace crackling in a grand stone room, velvet curtains swaying behind him. I was wrapped in a deep red cloak, curled up on his lap, laughing at something dumb he'd said just to make me smile. His hand was stroking my hair, and I was humming some old song, one we'd danced to on our rooftop. Then I blinked, and I was outside, under a sky full of stars. I was barefoot, spinning in the grass, while Cassian watched with that crooked smile like I was the only thing he ever wanted. He pulled me close, kissed me slow, soft, and reverent, like I was fragile and strong all at once. My heart ached. Another flash. I was in a marble hallway, pacing. Cassian came up behind me, wrapped his arms around me, and whispered,
No matter what happens, I'll love you, and I will find you, even if it takes 1,000 years.
He kissed my temple. I cried into his chest. And then, the night he gave me the silver ring. I remember it now. It wasn't just jewelry. It was a promise. He slid it onto my finger, kissed my knuckle, and said,
You'll forget me, but I'll never forget you.
I gasped aloud. This was real. These weren't fantasies. These were my memories. Cassian didn't manipulate my mind. Jackson did. And I forgot everything. Until now. It was real. Cassian wasn't the villain. He was my mate, my real mate, my forever. I loved him. I had always loved him. And Jackson had taken all of that from me. I gasped. My body jerked like I'd been thrown from a cliff, and I was suddenly back in the forest. My eyes flew open. Jackson's lips were on my chest now, and I looked down. My dress had fallen halfway down my arms, my chest exposed just enough to make my blood go cold. My straps had slipped, and my undergarments was barely in place. Jackson's lips were on my skin, at the center, low, dangerously low. He was kissing across my chest like he had every right to. Bearing more than I remembered allowing. He was lost in the moment, completely unaware that I wasn't there anymore, not mentally, not emotionally. Then he bit softly, near the center. I had to stop him. Wait, I gasped. He didn't hear me. Jackson, stop! This time I pushed him back, fast. His hand slipped off me and I scrambled to fix my dress, yanking it back over my shoulders. He blinked, confused.
What happened?
I stood there, breathing hard, my arms crossed tight over my chest. I wasn't embarrassed. I was angry. At him. At myself. Nothing, I said, voice flat. But everything had changed. And now I remembered who I really was. I loved Cassian. And I was lying almost without cloths beside a monster. I couldn't let it happen. Not now. Not like this. Jackson was pressed close to me, lips brushing over my skin like he owned me, like this moment was his to claim. But my mind wasn't in it. My body stiffened even though I tried not to show it. Jackson, I whispered, wrapping my hand gently around his wrist. I'm starving. He let out a low groan, like I'd just ruined the best part of his night.
Can it wait, Ember? Just a little longer.
I looked him dead in the eyes, softening my voice. I swear, I'll come back right after. I haven't fed all day. My head's spinning. That caught his attention. Jackson started looking for the leftover food, but I had already hidden it so Jackson couldn't find the food. He exhaled, brushing his thumb across my cheek like he was weighing his options.
Fine, but don't take long. You know what tonight means.
I fake smiled, nodded just enough to not raise suspicion, and slid out from under him, wrapping the blanket around me as I stood. As soon as I stepped into the trees, the cool air kissed my skin. I didn't waste time pretending to track prey. I had one goal. I scanned the forest like my life depended on it. Because honestly, it did. Then I saw it, those green leaves with silver veins running through them. I remembered their name, Lathrin. Old, magical, not really just science, strong enough to knock out a wolf twice Jackson's size if crushed properly. I chewed the leaves into a thick paste right there with my own teeth, bitter and gritty against my tongue, and saved some for myself, just enough to make it look convincing. By the time I returned, Jackson had lit a fire. I roasted a couple of rabbit legs I found, then spread the paste into his portion quickly inside the food while he was busy fixing the blankets. I even dabbed a little onto mine so the taste would match. Couldn't leave any cracks in my plan. Here, I said, offering his plate. Made it just how you like. Jackson grinned, tossing me a look like I was his perfect little mate. I wanted to punch that grin off his face, but I forced a smile and chewed slow. He devoured his food like he hadn't eaten in days. I watched every bite, counting down in my head. 1 minute, 2, 5. His eyes turned lazy, blinking more than usual.
You taste better than food.
He slurred as he crawled toward me. His fingers trailed down my cheek, jaw, neck, then his lips followed. He kissed me from my face down to my chest, warm hands pulling at my clothes like we had forever. I let him unhook, unzip, slide fabric off my shoulder. I held my breath as he tugged at the edge of my undergarments until he paused. Mid-motion, his weight sank heavier, his grip loosened. And just like that, he passed out. I didn't move for a second, just laid there, half exposed, feeling the thud of his body go limp beside me. My own breath finally released. I sat up slowly, pulled my clothes back on with hands that shook, but not from fear, from the surge of power, from the knowing. I had played him, I had won tonight. Lying down beside him again, I turned my back to him, curling up like I'd just drifted off after a wild night. My limbs ached from tension I couldn't show, but I closed my eyes, letting sleep carry me away before doubt could sneak in. By the time the morning light bled through the edge of the tent, I blinked awake and turned. Jackson was already sitting up. My whole body stiffened, but I forced myself to yawn like I had just woken up from the best night of my life. He looked at me, confused.
Did we?
I rolled onto my side, resting my hand on his chest. Yeah, I whispered, smiling soft and slow. We did. It was everything. He blinked again, like he was trying to pull the memory from fog. But I didn't give him time to think. I leaned in, kissed him light, and traced his jaw with my fingers. We're bonded now, Jackson, I said sweetly, watching his eyes soften. No one can undo what we've done. That sealed it. He believed me. Whether it was the lingering effects of the plant or his ego needing to hear those words, I didn't care. We packed up. I let him hold my hand all the way back to the fortress. Let him believe I was his, but I wasn't. Not anymore, and not for long. Because while he thought the bond was complete, the truth had already started digging its way out of my soul. What he didn't know, I remembered. And that was going to be the end of him. We made it back to Jackson's fortress just before sunrise. His hand was wrapped around mine like he owned it, and his chest was puffed out so much I thought he'd float off the damn ground. He looked like a kid who'd just won the biggest prize at the fair, except I was the prize, and I was praying he'd never figure out how rigged the game really was. The gate swung open, guards stepped aside, and I swear the way Jackson grinned made my skin crawl. He didn't waste a second.
She's mine now,
he announced, loud enough for the whole courtyard to hear.
We're bonded, sealed and done. Nobody can undo it, not even fate.
He laughed like it was the best joke in the world. I managed a soft smile, keeping my face calm even though every inch of me wanted to scream. Inside, I was burning up, but outside, I was butter smooth. That's the trick, isn't it? Look soft while you sharpen the knife. People started whispering, some clapped, some looked unsure, and then the questions came. One woman, older, with gray streaks in her braids and eyes sharp as glass, stepped forward.
How'd you know he was your mate, girl? You seemed so torn before.
I blinked slowly, tilting my head like I'd been caught in a daydream. I remembered, I said, real sweet and slow. Everything just clicked, like it was always there, and I just needed time to see it. Jackson's my mate. I feel it in my bones. Jackson wrapped an arm around my waist and pulled me into his side.
Told you all,
he said, chuckling.
Fate always wins.
I leaned my head against his shoulder just enough for show, but my eyes were scanning the edges of the crowd, counting exits, memorizing patrol routes. My heart wasn't in his arms. It was already halfway across the fortress. I need rest, I whispered to him, trying not to sound like I was begging. It's been a lot. He kissed the top of my head like some kind of hero.
Of course. You go. I'll deal with the others.
As soon as I was inside our room, I locked the door behind me. Deadbolt, latch. Even wedged a chair under the handle for good measure. My palms were sweaty as I made my way to the window. I didn't even waste time changing clothes. Just hitched up my dress and swung my leg over the ledge. The jump wasn't far. I landed in the shadows, pulled my hood up, and started running like my soul depended on it. Because maybe it did. Cassian's fortress wasn't close, but my body remembered the path like muscle memory. When I arrived, I was half out of breath and full of hope. But when I burst through the gates, a young guard stopped me. "Where's Cassian?" I asked, my voice raw.
He's not here.
The boy said.
He's been looking for you nonstop. Even went inside Jackson's place last night, all secret-like.
What?
He searched every forest in the region. Nearly tore down a watchtower trying to get info. But there's a way to reach him.
My eyes snapped to his. Tell me.
You can call him through your vision. If you focus hard enough, you'll find him.
I didn't wait. I dropped to my knees, closed my eyes, and let my body go still. It was like lighting a match in the dark. And just like that, there he was. The same vision spot as before, misty, glowing, quiet. He stood there, arms crossed, looking like the moonlight was carved just for him.
Did you already choose Jackson?
He asked. Voice flat, like ice. I stared at him. Tell me where you are. His jaw flexed.
I'm inside Jackson's fortress. Staff quarters. 7th room.
The vision snapped away before I could ask more. I didn't wait. I ran straight to his study, grabbed the original diary. He'd told me it was behind the false panel in the 3rd bookshelf, and took off again, heart slamming inside me, feet barely touching the floor. Jackson's place was still busy from his announcement, which worked in my favor. Nobody noticed me slip into the staff wing. I counted the doors. 1, 2, 3, 7. I stepped inside, locked the door. Empty. My eyes darted to the bathroom. I checked it. Nothing. And then he stepped out. Cassian. But how? You weren't in there, I whispered. I checked.
There's a hidden chamber behind the mirror,
he said.
Few know about it.
But I couldn't care less about the mirror right now. I'm sorry, I blurted. I married Jackson. I didn't have a choice. His face fell, not angry, just hollow, like someone had knocked the wind out of him.
Then why are you here?
Because we're mates. I remembered everything. I know what he did to us, to you. I know who I am now.
But we can't bond if you're married,
he said.
That's how it works.
We still can, because I didn't complete the bond. He blinked.
You mean you didn't kiss him?
I looked away. My cheeks burned. I did. I had to make it real for him, or he would have ended it all right there. Cassian clenched his fists.
But he didn't touch you further? Not like that?
I felt like I was being torn open just saying it. He touched me. He kissed my skin. More than I wanted, but I didn't let it go all the way. His eyes glowed red. His whole body looked like it was ready to tear through walls.
So you came here to shame me? To tell me he almost...
No. I came here because I love you, because I never stopped.
You kissed him, Ember. You let him...
I had to, I cried. I didn't want any of it. I did it to survive. For us. He turned his back to me, breathing hard. Then finally.
So, you're saying you're still mine?
I walked up behind him. If you'll have me, I don't expect you to forgive me, but I'll fight for us. He looked back over his shoulder.
We need to get out of here.
No, I said. I have a better idea. I told him the plan. Pretend he didn't know I was married. Pretend I didn't love him. Go and prepare for the war. Come along with your soldiers and announce an attack on Jackson. Wait for the right moment to show the diary to everyone. Let the truth speak for us. He smirked, just a little.
You're still as clever as ever.
I grabbed his hand, just for a second. Then I climbed out the window. He disappeared into the shadows, and I walked back into Jackson's fortress, face calm, steps steady, wearing a lie like a second skin. I found Jackson right where I figured he'd be, planted at the head of the long breakfast table, chewing on a thick slab of roasted meat like he was king of the damn world. As soon as I stepped into the dining hall, every single person turned and dropped their heads. No one said a word, just bowed like I was royalty, like I was their queen. And honestly, that part? It messed with my head a little, because I was their queen. Technically, but for all the wrong reasons. I forced a soft smile and walked over, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear, real casual, like I hadn't just come back from planning a rebellion with the vampire prince. "Good morning," I said, my voice calm and sweet like warm syrup. Jackson beamed, pulling out the chair beside him.
There she is, my wife the queen.
He said loud enough for the people in the back to hear. The way he said it, chest puffed out, full of that smug pride. He really believed it. It was almost pathetic, but also perfect. That's exactly what I needed. Jackson grinned like a kid with a shiny new toy. After breakfast, he walked with me out to the back terrace, hands behind his back like he was hiding something. Then he dropped the news like it was no big deal.
I've decided,
He said.
It's time to get rid of Cassian for good. He's been a thorn for too long.
My jaw tightened, but I forced a giggle and pressed myself against his side. Wait. Before you go marching off into battle, don't you think we deserve a proper honeymoon? I traced a circle on his chest, leaning in close. A real one. You and me, somewhere quiet, steamy. His eyes practically popped out of his head.
A honeymoon?
I brushed my lips against his jaw. I want to know all of you, Jackson, every inch. Let's take our time. Just us. No war, no distractions. He chuckled, clearly proud of himself.
All right, we'll plan it. Tonight.
Perfect, I whispered. But fate had other plans. And me. I was waiting for Cassian to arrive with his all-soldiers. By evening, the sky turned black. Thick clouds swirling fast. A wind slammed against the windows so hard, they rattled like bones in a drum. Then, they came. Hundreds of wolves. Soldiers in armor that glinted like silver under the stormy sky. They surrounded the fortress like a wave, silent, deadly, and strong. Jackson stepped to the window, his jaw tight, eyes wild.
That's him, Cassian. He brought an army.
I stepped beside him, acting startled. Is this bad? I mean, he had a huge army. Jackson didn't even blink.
He can't take you from me. I have the bond. He's just blowing smoke.
I placed my hand on his chest again. You're right, he can't. You're mine. His ego inflated like a parade balloon. He straightened his shoulders and stormed outside with me right behind him. And then, Cassian appeared. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't rushing in with fire and rage. He walked, calm, steady, eyes locked on Jackson like he'd waited his whole life for this moment.
You took my mate.
Cassian said, his voice low but sharp.
She's mine.
Jackson laughed like a damn fool.
Too late. We're married.
Cassian blinked like he was hurt.
If I can't have her,
He said,
neither can you.
Please.
Jackson scoffed.
You're nothing now. I've got the bond.
Cassian tilted his head.
Then let's end it.
Without warning, Cassian lunged. They crashed into each other, power against power. At first, Cassian looked like he was losing. He stumbled, grunted, let Jackson push him back. Jackson turned to the crowd, full of himself.
See? I told you.
But Cassian wasn't losing. He was playing, like a cat teasing a mouse. Then, just like that, Cassian broke away and ran to a wall, yanked a loudspeaker from his cloak, and shouted for the entire fortress to hear.
Listen up.
He shouted.
This man, Jackson, is no hero. He's a liar, a traitor. And here's the proof.
He held up the original diary, the one that couldn't be destroyed.
To show you it's real.
He tossed it into the fire pit beside him. The flames curled around it, licking and twisting, but the diary didn't burn. Not even a page. Gasps, whispers, people shifted. Cassian kept going.
Jackson stole my mate, lied to her, lied to all of you. He tricked you into believing he was chosen.
A few members of the pack stepped forward, brows furrowed, eyes flicking between me and the diary. That's when Jackson snapped. He lunged for Cassian mid-sentence, fury in his roar. But Cassian was ready. He dodged, twisted. And then he stopped pretending. Cassian unleashed everything, his real strength, his true power. Within seconds, Jackson was staggering, shocked, breathless. He couldn't believe it. His punches missed. His moves failed. He turned toward me, eyes full of betrayal.
You lied to me.
He breathed. I stepped forward, slow and steady, chin up. You ruined my life once. Now it's my turn. Then Jackson tried to leap at me. Wrong move. Before he could reach me, I slammed my power into him. My magic surged like lightning through my veins. Cassian joined in, hands glowing with red light. We moved together, me and him, like we'd been training our whole lives for this fight. And we ended it. Jackson collapsed, not moving, not breathing, just done. The chaos around us faded. The war slowed. His soldiers stopped fighting. Some dropped their weapons. Some just stood still, confused and lost. Cassian looked at me, his eyes back to soft gray. The war stopped the moment Jackson was gone. Everyone stepped back, like they didn't want to end their life.
You all right?
He asked, brushing his fingers over mine. I nodded. This time, it was real. Then we turned and walked away from the battlefield. Hand in hand, toward his fortress. Home. The moment we stepped foot inside Cassian's fortress, everything felt different, like the world had spun itself back into place. The soldiers bowed. The people whispered my name like I was a legend come to life. But not in fear, in awe. And Cassian? He didn't just hold my hand. He held my entire past, my broken pieces, my hopes. He looked at me like I was already his wife. We didn't wait. There were no long speeches, no grand preparations. Cassian raised his voice to the crowd gathered in the main hall and said,
We're getting married. Tonight.
And just like that, we did. I didn't need a gown laced with diamonds. I didn't need music echoing through the halls. I only needed the way his eyes stayed locked on mine, like I was the answer to every question he'd ever asked. The vows were good, but his voice when he said mine, that was the part that wrapped around my ribs and melted everything. When the doors to our room finally closed behind us that night, it was just him and me. Cassian leaned against the door, watching me like I was a dream he didn't want to wake up from. The fire crackled in the corner. My dress swept softly across the stone floor as I stepped closer to him. I know. My voice barely made it out. I paused, my throat thick. I know you need time, and I'll wait no matter how long it takes. But just know this, I only ever loved you. Doesn't matter what I had to do, how I had to act. None of it changed how I felt. You're my mate, Cassian. Always were, always will be. He crossed the room in a blink and cupped my face with both hands.
You think I don't know that?
He said softly.
I saw the fire in your eyes even when you were with him. I felt the pull, like the universe kept yanking me back to you. I love you, Ember, and I know none of that was your fault.
Tears stung the corners of my eyes. I breathed in slowly, finally letting my chest rise after what felt like days of pretending. I have to tell you everything, I whispered. The church, the forced vows, the night in the forest when I ran and he caught me, every lie I had to tell, every trick I had to play. I thought I'd lost you, Cassian. I thought maybe I'd lost myself too. Cassian's thumb brushed over my cheek.
That's over. You're here now, and we're not wasting another second.
He kissed me, slow at first, like we were savoring the moment. My hand slipped into his dark hair, pulling him closer. He deepened the kiss, his lips brushing over mine like a promise sealed in warmth and longing. His mouth traced down to my neck. My head tilted, giving him space as he kissed just beneath my jaw, then lower. My skin burned under his lips. He moved to the base of my throat, then to my chest, and I could feel every breath he took against me. Cassian gently slid the straps of my dress down from my shoulders. The silky fabric dipped low, pooling around my waist. His fingers skimmed over my skin, his touch unhurried, reverent, like he was memorizing me. He whispered,
"You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen."
I unhooked the clasp of my undergarment, letting it fall between us. Then I took his hands and brought them to my chest. His palms were warm, steady. He leaned in again, brushing his lips across the curve of my shoulder. The rest of the dress slipped down, sliding to my hips before pooling at my feet. He kissed my chest again, softly. Like a prayer, I turned around slowly, pressing my back to him. His lips followed, trailing kisses from my shoulder blades down my spine, pausing at the small of my back. Each kiss sparked something deep inside me. He ran his hands gently along my waist, pulling me closer. I slid off the last of my undergarments and turned to face him again. The heat between us grew, thick with promise. Cassian dropped to his knees. His hands cradled my thighs as he kissed one, then the other. Then higher. I ran my fingers through his hair, breathing deeply, anchored in him. His mouth moved with reverence, never rushing. Then I pulled him up, looked into his eyes, and climbed on top of him. His hands steadied my hips as I lowered myself onto him, slowly. Our bodies finally connected, not just in flesh, but in everything we'd been through. He wrapped his arms around me as we moved together, finding rhythm, then losing it, then finding it again. Nothing else existed, just us, just this. We whispered each other's names like secrets, and when it was over, we didn't speak for a while. Just held each other, skin to skin, heart to heart. I felt safe, I felt seen, I felt home. I traced my fingers across his chest, drawing invisible patterns. This was always the end of the story for me, I said quietly. You and me, no matter how far apart we got. Somehow, I knew. Cassian kissed my temple, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear.
Then it's not the end, Ember. This is just the beginning.